The first light of the day slid over the pale bricks of Meereen like a blade drawn from a sheath, catching on every crack and terrace and carved harpy until the whole city glowed the color of old bone. From the highest balcony of the Great Pyramid, Viserys Targaryen watched it wake. He had once imagined that his first sight of a city that belonged to him would be of King's Landing. The red walls, the glittering bay, the huddled sprawl of houses beneath the shadow of the Red Keep that his father had filled with fire and whispers. In his dreams, the banners had been his own and the people had shouted his name. When he had been a ragged boy in Pentos, shivering beneath Illyrio's silks and a mantle of humiliation, he had seen it all clearly. The reality that lay below him now was nothing like that boy's imagining. Meereen was a wound in the desert, a smear of pale stone and broken towers, its pyramids stabbing the sky, its streets a tangle of sun-baked dust and stagnant canals. Even from this height he could see the patchwork of it. The bright linens of freedmen strung between houses, the gold and blue of the old nobility clinging stubbornly to balconies, the smoke of cook fires rising over crumbling walls where harpies had once perched. Beyond it all, beyond the great broken gate, the flat sea of sand rolled away until it became haze and heat and mirage. The air, even at dawn, was thick with warmth, heavy as a hand around his throat. Yet when the largest of the three dragons wheeled above the city and cast its shadow across the waking streets, Meereen bowed its head whether it wished to or not. The dragon shrieked once, a sound that cut through the morning chatter and sent a flock of pale birds whirling away from a rooftop. Scales the color of char and sunset caught the light as the beast banked, wings beating slow and powerful, and then it folded itself with lazy grace onto the upper terrace below Viserys' balcony. Sand and dust skittered at the downdraft of its landing. "Eemian," Viserys murmured, resting his forearms on the hot stone, feeling the faint tremor as the dragon's weight settled. The name still felt strange on his tongue, borrowed from a prince long dead, but he wore it like he wore everything else he had taken since the night in the Red Desert when the world had changed. The dragon's head turned, one molten eye narrowing. The scar along the ridge of its muzzle, earned in the fighting pits when it had torn apart a chained bull that would not die, stood out as a pale line against the darker scales. The beast snorted smoke and a little ember, hot enough that Viserys could feel the breath even from the balcony. "I know," he said, lips twitching, as if he understood that scrutiny. "It isn't home." The dragon did not answer, of course. It simply blinked and settled its chin on its massive forearms, tail coiling around itself like a living wall. Below, its two smaller brothers, Aelryan, pale and quick as lightning, and Rhaenys, all molten brass and cobalt, were quartering the sky, their shadows sliding over the city, drawing small cries from the people in the streets. Home. The word had lost shape over the years. Home had been the Red Keep when he had been small, his mother's arms smelling of milk and lemon oil. Then home had been a series of merchants' houses and rented halls and cramped rooms in cities whose names blurred together. Then it had been no place at all, only the weight of a crown he did not yet wear and the taste of bitterness on his tongue. Now home was this pyramid of pale stone that stank faintly of old incense and new blood. Behind him, a door scraped open. He did not turn immediately. He knew the sound of her footsteps as well as he knew his own heartbeat. "They say the city sleeps longer now," Daenerys said quietly, voice soft and level in the hot air, "since you forbade the bells at first light." "The bells were for slaves," Viserys answered, eyes still on the streets below, "to drag them from bed to toil. I will not have my city roused like an overseer's kennels." "It was not the bells that made them slaves," she said, "and their chains were not only iron." Her words slid easily into a space between them, an old argument well worn with repetition. There was no real heat in her tone, only a tired sadness. It was easier to bear than the contempt she had once carried for him, back when they had fled through the free cities and he had been drunk on his own hunger and fear. He turned then. Daenerys stood just inside the doorway, a pale figure framed in carved stone and shadow. She wore a simple dress of ivory linen that left her arms bare, her silver gold hair braided up from her temples in neat coils. The air in the corridor behind her was cooler, carrying with it a faint smell of oil and parchment. She had been awake long before dawn. He could see it in the careful set of her jaw, the way her eyes had narrowed slightly against the light. She looked older than she had any right to, not in her face, which was still too young for the weight she carried, but in the way she held herself. The girl who had once flinched from his raised hand had become a woman who would now meet his gaze without fear. He had not raised a hand to her in years, but memory left its own bruises. "The city sleeps longer," she repeated, stepping out onto the balcony. The dragon's eye flicked toward her, smoke curling from its nostrils. She did not flinch, though the first time she had stood this close to Meereen she had trembled like a leaf. "Let them sleep," Viserys said, watching her instead of the city. "They will need their strength. Today will be noisy enough without bells." "That sounds like a threat," she murmured. "A promise," he corrected, "or a warning. For whom, we shall see." She came to stand beside him, resting her hands lightly on the stone. Their arms did not touch, but he could feel the warmth of her all the same, the nearness of her like a second son. "You petitions?" she asked. "You've read them?" "I have," he lied. Her eyes slid to him, cool and assessing. "You slept in your clothes again. There's ink on your sleeve, but none on your fingers. Missandei says you gave the scrolls back untouched." He grimaced, glancing down. The smear of ink on the pale linen cuff was faint but undeniable. "The girl gossips too freely. She serves too faithfully," Daenerys replied. "If you will not read them, at least say as much plainly. They come to you with their complaints and hopes, Viserys. They think if they can only reach your ears, something will change." "Something will," he said. "For some of them. For others, nothing will change at all. That is the nature of rule." "They call you Dragonlord," she said. "Not all of them mean it kindly." His jaw tightened. He turned back to the city, forcing his hands to relax on the stone. Below, the winding snake of the main avenue that led from the harbor to the foot of the Great Pyramid was already stirring. Vendors were setting out their wares beneath sun-bleached awnings. Children darted between the legs of men hauling water in sloshing leather skins. Somewhere, a woman laughed, the sound thin with distance. "They called me the Beggar King once," he said quietly. "They spat that name at my back in the alleys of Bravos and Mere. They said it as they slammed their doors or clutched their purses. It did not make me less a king. It made you more dangerous," Daenerys said. "Hungry men are always dangerous. So are those who have been mocked." He glanced at her, a rueful smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I thought I was the only one who remembered that boy." "I remember him," she said, and her eyes softened just a fraction. "I remember the way his hands shook when he held a knife at Illyrio's table, and the way he stared at the tiles on the floor in case they were gold." He felt the old humiliation prickle at the back of his neck, as if Illyrio's fat fingers were once more smoothing his brocade and murmuring about debts owed and debts collected. "I remember, too," Viserys said, "how that boy swore that one day he would be more than the shadow of a dead king and his madness, that he would stand with dragons at his back and make them laugh out the other side of their soft, fat mouths." "Not all of them are fat," she said, a small teasing note in her voice. "Some are gaunt, some are sharp as knives. Some of them live in this city now, wearing harpy masks and hiding in shadows." He snorted. "If they had seen what I saw in the desert that night, they would not hide for long." Her gaze shifted to Meereen, whose massive chest rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. "Sometimes I wonder if you saw the same thing I did," she said. "When the fire went out, when the eggs cracked." He did not answer at once. The memory rose unbidden. The smell of burning horseflesh, the heat so intense it had blistered his lips, the way the world had gone silent when the last flame curled inward and then burst outward in a shock of heat that had knocked them both to their knees. He remembered the sound of the eggs cracking like the cracking of the world itself. He remembered the sight of the small, blood-slicked head forcing its way out of blackened shell, eyes like hot coals, smoke hissing from its nostrils. He remembered Daenerys' face, smeared with ash and tears, as she reached out with shaking hands. And he remembered the way the tiny creature had turned from her touch, wreathed itself around his scorched wrist instead, its body hot enough to sear his skin, and yet he had not drawn back. He still bore that scar, a twisting pattern of pale and pink that wrapped from his wrist up along his forearm, half hidden beneath his sleeve. When the nights were cold, it ached. When the dragons were near, it burned. "You saw a miracle," he said at last. "I saw a promise." "And what did they see?" she asked, eyes on the dragon. "Our children of fire?" He hesitated. "A master," he said. "I think perhaps they saw a master." Daenerys' lips pressed together. "Then we should be careful what sort of master you choose to be." He laughed under his breath, a sound with no real mirth in it. "You think I do not know that? You think I do not hear them whispering? The sons of the Harpy, the freedmen, the sellswords who rode with us, the captains of the ships in the harbor, even your gray men with their spears and their dead eyes, all of them watching, all of them weighing. Is this the dragon they waited for, or a man pretending to be his own shadow?" She did not tell him he was wrong. "The petitions," she said again after a moment. "You should read them, if only to remind yourself of their names. You do not rule a city of stones and stories, Viserys. You rule people. People are stones stacked upon one another," he said. "They will bear weight if you place it carefully. If you do not, they will tumble down and bury you. I have no intention of being buried in Meereen." "No," she said softly. "You intend to use it as a step." He looked at her sharply. "Is that what you think this is? Some staging ground? Nothing more than a launch for my glorious return?" Her eyes did not flinch. "Is it not?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had been many things in his life. Petty, cruel, small. He had lied to everyone, including himself, more times than he could count. Yet when he looked at his sister now, he found he could not muster an easy falsehood. "Yes," he said, "and no. I will not pretend that I did not ride into the city with Westeros burning behind my eyes. I did. This pyramid, this throne, these dragons, they are tools as well as prizes. But I have lived long enough in the dust not to despise the ground beneath my feet." "They are not tools," she said, a flash of heat in her tone. "They are lives. Lives with histories and grief and blood. You can build your ladder from bricks if you must, Viserys. But if you stack skulls instead, do not be surprised when it sways beneath you." He almost snapped at her then, the old instinct rising like bile. How dare she? How dare this little sister, born in exile, who had once clung to his sleeve and begged for bread, speak to him as if he were some reckless boy? But the words caught on the scar in his throat where Dragonfire had kissed him that night. He swallowed them. "I'd forgotten," he said dryly. "How fond you are of metaphors. I had to learn something while you were teaching dragons to roast goats," she said. He snorted, then flicked her a sideways glance. "If I sit in judgment today with you at my side, will you be satisfied?" "I will be less afraid," she said simply. "For the people?" he asked. "For you," she said. The answer landed between them like a dropped sword. Viserys looked away first, drawn to the line of ships anchored in the hazy distance where the sluggish yellow-green river met the sea. Even at this early hour, he could see small figures moving on the decks, sails being furled, cargo shifted. The banners that fluttered from their masts were a motley mix. The half-faded sigils of Volantene traders, the sharp black and red of Braavosi captains, a pale green flag he did not recognize at all. They had come on the tide, drawn by rumor and opportunity. The Dragonlord of Meereen, they said, was consolidating his rule. There would be contracts to win, favors to earn, debts to strike. There were other banners in that harbor, too. The stylized seahorse of House Valerion, the kraken of House Greyjoy, black on a golden field, old Westerosi arms that had no business in Slaver's Bay. He felt their presence like the itch beneath a scab. Westeros was closer than the distance on any map. "We'll see them today," he said. "The Westerosi envoys, the Greyjoy captain, the Valerian bastard. They will stand before my throne in a line with freedmen and former masters and claimants to property lost to the sack. Do you know what they want?" Daenerys shook her head once. "Everything." He smiled thinly. "At least you know me well. You are not the only dragon here," she said, eyes steady on his. "Do not forget that." He thought of the way the dragon's eyes followed her sometimes, when she crossed the terrace, of the way Eemion would lower his head if she laid a hand on his snout. He thought of the look on her face in the desert, when the light of the dying pyre had haloed her hair, and for a heartbeat he had thought. He shut the memory away. "Dress," he said, pushing himself off the balcony rail. "The city waits, and so do their grievances. If I must listen to the crawling complaints of 100 Meereenese, you can suffer beside me." "Gladly," she said, a faint spark of humor in her tone. "Better that than let you do it alone." He paused in the doorway, hand on the carved stone. "Daenerys." She looked up at him. His mouth shaped the beginning of something, an apology, perhaps, or a confession, but whatever it was withered in the heat. He had never been good with words when they were not edged. "Later," he said instead. "We have a kingdom to pretend at first." Her expression flickered, something like disappointment, quickly masked. "A city," she corrected gently. "A city first, a kingdom after." "That is what I said," he replied, and walked into the shadowed corridor before she could see that he lied. The throne of Meereen had never been meant for a Targaryen. It was a monstrous thing, all sharp angles and carved harpies, fashioned of the same pale brick as the rest of the pyramid but inlaid with gold and lapis and chips of jade. The arms were talons. The back rose in a fan of feathered wings that seemed poised to close around whoever sat there like a trap. The steps that led up to it were narrow and steep, forcing anyone who climbed them to bow their head lest they crack it on the underside of the wings. Viserys had thought seriously about having it torn apart when he first took the city. The idea of sitting where slave masters had sat for centuries turned his stomach. In the end, he had not destroyed it. Instead, he had taken a hammer to the worst of its ornaments and had a craftsman inlay a new sigil at its crown. A three-headed dragon of black stone and red glass, coiled with wings outspread, its heads turned three ways. The work had been rough at first, a defiant scar across the smooth old lines, but weeks of chisel and polish had softened it. Now the dragon seemed almost as if it had always been there, peering down on the hall with cold, curious eyes. In the shadow of those eyes, Viserys sat. The audience chamber of the Great Pyramid was already stifling by mid-morning. The air hung heavy with the smells of sweat and incense, unwashed wool and expensive oils. Tall shutters had been thrown open along the walls, but the faint breeze that slid in from outside did little more than stir the tapestries. Below the dais, the hall was crowded. Freedmen in rough-spun shirts stood shoulder to shoulder with former masters in embroidered robes. Sellswords lounged against pillars, hands on the hilts of their swords, their eyes sharp. A cluster of Meereenese nobles in their outlandish tokars whispered behind jeweled hands. Here and there, Viserys could pick out the pale hair and sharp features of men and women from the free cities, drawn by commerce and curiosity. At the back of the hall, near the great doors, the Unsullied stood in a double rank, spears held upright, faces impassive. Grey Worm's expression was the same carved calm as his men's, but when Viserys' gaze passed over him, he caught the faintest dip of the man's head. Acknowledgement, deference, and something else, something more measured and wary. On Viserys' right, Daenerys sat in a lower seat, no throne, but a cushioned chair carved with dragons rather than harpies. She wore a dress the color of deep blue sea, her hair braided back from her face in a pattern that combined Valyrian and Dothraki styles. Missandei stood just behind her shoulder, quick dark eyes taking in everything, a slate and stylus in her hands. On his left, Ser Jorah Mormont stood with his hand on the pommel of his sword, broad shoulders filling the space like a wall. The Exile Knight's beard was more gray now than black, and there were new lines about his eyes, but his gaze was as steady as ever. Barristan Selmy had taken his place closer to the steps, white cloak draped over one arm in deference to the heat. It was not the Kingsguard cloak of old, but a simple white mantle, unadorned save for a small silver brooch in the shape of a dragon's head. He had argued against the brooch, but Viserys had insisted. A king needed symbols as much as swords. On the floor before the throne, a boy was shouting. "I say it is mine," he cried, voice cracking. "My father bought them with good coin, and though he freed them at your command, he did not give away the house." He could not have been more than 15, this boy, yet he wore a Meereenese noble's thin gold collar and a tokar whose folds swept the ground. His face was flushed red with indignation, his hair plastered damply to his forehead with sweat. Behind him, a woman in a plain dress clutched 2 small children to her skirts, her eyes wide and fearful. "The decree was clear," Daenerys said, her voice even. "Freedmen are not property. You do not own them, nor the fruit of their labor. The house belongs to those who live there. They live there because my father provided it," the boy shouted, pointing a trembling finger at the woman. "He clothed them, he fed them, he gave them work. Without him, they would have starved in the streets." The woman flinched as if struck. "We worked," she said softly, the first words she had spoken. Her accent was thick. "From before the sun until long after dark. He gave us food that would not keep even rats. My son's back." She swallowed, eyes darting to the boy as if she feared to speak. "My son's back still has the scars." Missandei murmured something under her breath. Viserys did not catch the words, but he recognized the cadence of her home tongue, the soft music of Nathi speech. It sounded like a prayer. "Princes do not trifle with petty disputes." His father's voice whispered in his memory, oily and amused. "Leave that to stewards and magistrates, my son. We are fire. We burn away the small things." He shifted on the throne, the carved stone digging into his back. Sweat prickled beneath his collar. "Your name," he said to the boy, forcing his voice to stay level. "Hasdor zo Osnak," the boy said, lifting his chin. Pride warred with fear in his eyes. "Of the ancient line of Osnak zo Osnak, whose house." "I did not ask for your genealogy," Viserys cut in. "I asked for your name." Hasdor's mouth snapped shut, then opened again. "Hasdor," he said, sulky. "My lord." "Your grace," Ser Jorah murmured quietly, just loud enough for the boy to hear. Hasdor's face went from red to white. He hesitated, then bowed, a clumsy, hastily learned dip from the waist. "Your grace," he corrected. "Forgive me. This matter is only small to those who do not feel it. My father, your father profited from the buying and selling of human flesh," Daenerys said, not unkindly. "He is fortunate to keep his life and the larger part of his fortune." Hasdor rounded on her. "Fortunate?" he spat, and Missandei's hand tightened on her stylus. "Our house has stood in Meereen since before your dragons were eggs, Khaleesi. You ask us to forget all our customs in a single year. We have lost ships, lands, slaves, coin. You take this house and you leave us with what? With nothing. Ships?" Viserys said mildly, lifting one hand. "You just said ships." Hasdor blinked at him. "Yes," he said, "for great ships, your grace, seized by your men at the harbor when you took the city." "My father, how many ships did you lose in the sacking?" Viserys asked the woman in the plain dress, tilting his head. She stared at him, baffled. We did not own." "Of course," he said. "No ships." A ripple of uneasy laughter went through the hall. Half of it died quickly beneath the flat, unimpressed stare of the Unsullied. "Hasdor," Viserys said, tasting the boy's name. "You say your father fed these people and clothed them." "Yes," Hasdor said eagerly. "We gave them purpose." "And whose coin bought the food?" he asked. "Whose labor spun the cloth?" Hasdor opened his mouth, then closed it, frowning. as if the questions were some trick he had not learned the answer to. "My father, your father," Viserys said, took and called it giving. "The house he built is no more only his than his slaves were only things. You speak of custom. Custom is nothing more than habit worn into law by time." There was a murmur at that, low and uneasy. The Meereenese nobles shifted, their golden collars glinting in the half-light. "If I give the house to this family," Viserys went on, gesturing toward the woman and her children, "you will say I show contempt for your ancient ways. If I return the house to you, the freedmen will say I care nothing for their pain. Either way, one of you leaves angry." He let that hang in the air for a moment, then leaned forward slightly on the throne, feeling the carved dragon at his back, a weight between his shoulder blades. "Fortunately," he said, "I am not obliged to choose between your anger." Asdor blinked. "Your grace, you will keep the house," Viserys said. A rustle of surprise went through the hall. "You will keep it because to strip you of all things would make you desperate, and desperate men do foolish, bloody things. Your wealth has already been cut in half. That is punishment enough for now." Asdor's chest swelled, hope and triumph surfacing in his eyes. "However," Viserys continued, voice sharpening, "you will also give to this family," he pointed to the woman whose eyes had gone wide, "a sum equal to 10 years of their labor." Asdor choked. 10 years of free labor at the rate you would pay a hired man," Viserys said. "Food, clothing, lodging, the cost of their children as they grow. If your father's accounts are as meticulous as I am told, you will have no trouble calculating such a figure. You will pay it into the city's treasury for disbursement to them, and they will leave your house and find a new one, with coin enough to begin again. They owe you nothing further, nor you them." "That is not," Asdor sputtered. "That is not our way." "It is mine," Viserys said. "If your fathers had not built their wealth on blood, they would not find it so hard to untangle. You reap, Asdor, what he has sown. Be grateful I do not demand interest." There was a low, surprised chuckle somewhere in the hall. Even Ser Jorah's lips twitched. Daenerys was watching him, eyes intent. He could not read her expression. Asdor looked around as if seeking allies, but the other nobles pointedly did not meet his gaze. At last, shaking, he bowed again, more deeply this time. "As you command, your grace," he said. The words dragged from him like teeth. "I will bring the sum to your treasurer before the moon turns." "You will bring half within 10 days, Viserys replied. "The rest by the end of the moon. If you do not, the house will be seized and given in full to this family, and you will take their place on the street. Do you understand me?" Asdor's face had gone bone white. "Yes," he whispered. "Then go," Viserys said, lifting his hand in dismissal. The boy turned stiffly, his tokar dragging on the floor. As he passed the woman, he glanced at her, something like hatred curdling in his eyes. She seemed to shrink under the look, drawing her children close. One of them, a little boy with big, dark eyes, stared back defiantly. "Thank you," the woman whispered, dropping to her knees. "Thank you, your—" "Stand," Viserys said, more sharply than he had intended. Her flinch made something twist unpleasantly in his chest. "I have not given you a gift. I have returned a debt. Do not mistake one for the other." She rose slowly, tears shining in her eyes. "Even so," she said, you have done what no one ever did. We will not forget." "See that you do not," he said, and then softer, as she backed away into the crowd. "Teach your son to read. There will be need of men who can write their own names in the new world we are building." He did not know if she heard him. The petitions flowed on, one after another, a river of grievances and pleas and accusations. A freedman claimed a former master had stolen his tools. A Meereenese widow begged for guards on a stretch of road where the Sons of the Harpy had struck 3 times in as many weeks. 2 mercenary captains argued over a contract that had not been written clearly enough. A man with the scarred cheeks of a Giscari soldier knelt and presented a harpy mask, he said he had taken from his dead brother's face, asking what he should do with the body. "All men are welcome to be buried in the shadow of this pyramid," Viserys said, the answer coming more easily now, the rhythm of judgment settling into him. "So long as they swear by whatever gods they remember that their sons will not wear such masks." His throat grew dry. His shoulders ached from the weight of the throne. Still the line moved forward. More than once he felt his temper flare. When a plump merchant with rings on every finger complained that the abolition of slavery had ruined his profits and suggested that perhaps some limited, regulated bondage might be permitted, Viserys' hand tightened on the dragon-headed arm of the throne until his knuckles whitened. "Ser Jorah," he said without looking away from the man. "How far is it from this hall to the fighting pits?" "Not far enough, your grace," Jorah murmured. "Take this man there," Viserys said, fixing the merchant with a flat, cold gaze. "Chain him as they chained their slaves, and have him stand in the sun until dark. Give him water enough to live and food enough not to faint. When he returns tomorrow, we will speak of bondage again, and see if his thoughts have changed." The merchant squealed in outrage, but Jorah had a hand on his arm like an iron band, and the Unsullied moved forward in silent unison. The hall's murmur turned sharp, jagged at the edges. "That was cruel," Daenerys said under her breath when the man had been dragged away, her voice pitched low so only he could hear. "And petty." "Yes," Viserys said. He felt strangely lightheaded, as if the air in the hall had thinned. "But necessary. I will not have them forget that slavery is not merely a word that can be polished and returned under a new name." Her fingers twisted in the fabric of her dress. "You sound like him," she murmured. "Like father." The words were an arrow loosed without thought. They struck clean. He turned his head slowly to look at her. "Do not ever compare me to him again," he said, and his voice was so quiet that even Jorah, standing close, startled. Daenerys' eyes widened, color draining from her face. For a moment, they were two children again in a narrow room in Braavos, and he was the boy who had shouted and thrown plates when she had upset him, and she the girl who had cowered behind the bed. Then she drew herself up, shoulders straightening, and met his gaze. "Then do not sound like him," she said. The hall buzzed on unaware. Viserys forced his jaw to unclench. "Call the next petitioner," he said, and Missandei's clear voice rang out, a fragile thread in the heavy air. By the time the Westerosi envoys were announced, the shadows in the hall had begun to lengthen, the sunlight slanting through the open shutters like bars. He knew them before their names were given. They looked wrong here among the Meereenese and freedmen. Their leathers and wools and half-familiar sigils were like pieces of Enoth, her life thrust into this one. "The captain of the Iron Victory," Missandei called, bearing a message from the Lord of the Iron Islands. The man who stepped forward was lean and hard-eyed, his hair cut short, his beard trimmed close. He wore black leather salt-stained from long days at sea. Around his neck hung a necklace of strange teeth. The kraken on his battered breastplate was flaking, but still recognizable. "He calls himself Lord," the captain said bluntly, without making much attempt to bow. His accent was thick with the sea. "But I've seen more men crowned in salt and blood than I care to count. They come and go. The drowned god keeps his own counsel." Viserys regarded him coolly. "And what counsel does he give you now?" "That the sea is wide," the captain said, grinning fiercely, "and full of weakness. Your dragons make a great shadow, your grace. The world stares at it. Some would shelter in it. Some would slip under it when you are not looking. Some would cut the legs from the thing that casts it." Cryptic, that. Viserys had little patience for riddles when his throat was sore and his patience thin. "You were sent with a message," he said. "Deliver it." The captain shrugged, then reached into his belt and drew out a tightly rolled length of parchment bound with a ragged black ribbon. He tossed it up the steps with a casual flick. Barristan caught it before it could roll far, frowning at the insolence, then brought it to Viserys with a bow. The wax seal, pressed with a crude kraken, had already cracked in the heat. Viserys broke it fully and unrolled the parchment. The script was rough but legible, the letters big and sprawled, ink blotted here and there. To the Dragonlord of Meereen it began, Lord of Ash and Chains. His lip curled. The message was short and swaggering. It spoke of opportunity and glory, of ships swift and sharp that could cut across any sea, of men who feared fire but not so much they would not sail near it in search of plunder. It hinted, none too subtly, that with the right ally, the Iron Islands might find it in their black hearts to turn their longships against any coast, Westerosi or Essosi. It did not say so plainly, but the meaning was clear enough. Let us raid your enemies, and we will not raid you. He rolled the parchment again, fingers smudged with the ink that had bled in the heat. And what did he offer you, this lord of yours? Viserys asked the captain. For bearing his words so far? A share in the plunder, the man said cheerfully, and a ship of my own when we return. And if you do not? Viserys asked. The captain shrugged. Then I will find another sea to sail, your grace. Bold this one, too used to dealing with soft men who owed him for their cargo. Tell your lord, Viserys said, that the dragon has no need of krakens tugging at his tail. If he wishes to see Westeros burn, he can climb a cliff and watch the smoke when the time comes. If he wishes to share in the spoils, he may bring his ships under my banner and swear fealty. Half measures do not interest me. The captain's grin faltered, then returned, tinged with something like respect. I'll tell him, he said, whether he likes it or no. You will, Viserys said, or you will not return at all. The man laughed at that, a harsh bark, then bowed enough that it could not be taken as insult, and backed away. Next came a slender man with pale hair and fine hands, who bowed deeply and introduced himself as Owain Valerion, bastard of Driftmark, captain of the Sunskimmer. His clothes were fine, his manners smoother, but the hunger in his eyes was not so different from the Ironborn's. There are still those in Westeros, Owain said, who remember the old blood, your grace, who look east and see not a monster, but the rightful king, delayed. The rightful king died in the Trident, Viserys said. Or so they tell me. Owain's mouth twitched. The world has a way of misplacing rightful kings, he said, and finding them again when least expected. Viserys did not trust men who spoke in circles, but he knew he would need them. Men with ships. Men who knew the coasts and currents. Men who could whisper his name into the right ears in the Seven Kingdoms. Speak plainly, he said. What do you want, Owain Valerion? Place, Owain said at once, and a future. I do not fancy seeing my children grow up under lions and stags. I would rather they grew under dragons. And what would you give me? Viserys asked. Besides your charming conversation? Owain smiled, slow and sharp. I know the harbors of Westeros as well as any man alive, he said. I can tell you where your ships will find safe anchorage and where they will be dashed to pieces. I can speak to lords in Driftmark and Dragonstone who still dream of dragons on the wind. And I can tell you which men in King's Landing go to their beds thinking of fire in the night. The hall seemed to shrink around them. Viserys could feel Daenerys' gaze on him, hot upon his cheek. Later, he said. We will speak later, you and I, in a cooler room. For now, accept my hospitality and keep your ears open. Meereen is not Westeros, but men are men wherever they stand. They gossip, they lie, they dream. Bring me something of worth, Owain, and we will see if there is room at my table. Owain bowed again, deeper this time, and stepped back. The petitions ended with a ragged line of freedmen asking for work and food and justice. By the time Missandei's voice finally called an end to the day's supplications, the light in the hall had gone from straw yellow to deep amber. The shadows along the walls had thickened into pools. You have done enough for one day, your grace, Barristan said quietly, as the last petitioner was led out. Your voice, forgive me, but you sound as if you've been shouting at Tourney. Viserys exhaled, feeling the tension seep from his shoulders. I have been shouted at, which is much the same, he said. If one more man tells me of his ancient customs, I may set Eemion on the whole lot of them. Daenerys rose from her chair, rolling her shoulders to ease the stiffness. "You listened," she said, surprise and something like reluctant admiration in her tone. "Truly listened. I have seen kings grow weary after 3 complaints and begin to wave their hands at anything put before them. You have seen one king," he said, the word sour in his mouth, "and I do not intend to die as he did." Barristan's jaw tightened at that, but he said nothing. "Come," Daenerys said. "You need water, and food, and to rest. If you mean to meet with these captains before night falls, you will want your wits." "My wits are always with me," Viserys said, but his throat did burn and his head did ache. The stone of the throne had imprinted itself in the muscles of his back. He rose, feeling the eyes of the hall on him as he descended the steps. Ser Jorah moved a half-pace behind, a solid shadow at his shoulder. Daenerys matched his stride, Missandei gliding behind. The corridor that led from the audience chamber to the private rooms of the pyramid was dimmer, the air cooler. The thick stone walls held back the worst of the heat. Braziers burned low along the passage, their embers glowing. They walked in silence for a time. The sounds of the hall receded behind them, replaced by the softer noises of the pyramid. The murmur of servants, the distant clatter of pots in the kitchens, the faint echo of dragon cries from above. "You handled Hasdor well," Daenerys said at last. "I would not have thought you remembered the numbers in Father's ledgers so clearly." "I remember everything he shouted at me," Viserys said. "Every lesson he thought he was teaching. Every time he held my face over the books and told me I would drown in numbers if I did not learn to swim. He was a madman, but a madman who understood how debt binds as tightly as chains." "And you?" she asked. "Do you intend to bind them with debt instead of chains?" "Better to owe me coin than their souls," he said. "Coin can be repaid. Souls—" He trailed off, thinking of the harpy masks, of the bodies dragged from alleys. Daenerys watched him, profile sharp in the torchlight. "You are changing," she said. The word sent a strange ripple through him, part pride and part unease. "From what?" he asked lightly. "From a boy into a man? From a beggar into a king? That is what you wanted, is it not? A brother who would not sell you for a horse." Her mouth tightened. "Do not jest about that." He stopped walking. So did she, 2 steps ahead. The corridor was empty behind them. Jorah and Missandei had fallen back at the last turning, sensing perhaps that they needed space. "I am not jesting," Viserys said. "I cannot speak of what I was without speaking of that, Daenerys. Without spitting out the rot. I remember every word I said to you, every threat. Every time I told you I would give you to some lord with cracked teeth and filthy hands if it meant I could buy a sword with the coin. Do you think I do not see your face now when I close my eyes?" Her jaw clenched. "You never apologized." "I never thought I had to," he said honestly. I thought it was the way of things. The strong take, the weak are taken. If I did not take, we would both starve. That is what every man we ever met taught me." "And now?" she asked. "Now I own dragons," he said, "and a city where men will jump if I raise my hand. That does not excuse what I was, but it changes what I must be." She regarded him skeptically. "You think power makes men better?" "No," he said. "I think it makes them more of what they already are. There was a time when all I was hunger and fear and fury. That boy with his cracked hands and his cracked pride. If you had given him dragons, he would have burned the world out of spite. You know that." "Yes," she said softly. "I know that. I am not that boy," he said. "Not anymore." "Who are you then?" she asked. He opened his mouth, and for a moment, nothing came. He thought of the night in the desert, of the way the fire had leapt up his arm and wrapped itself around him like a cloak and yet had not consumed him. Of the way the dragons had watched him out of newborn eyes, something vast and ancient behind their animal gaze. He thought, too, of nights in Meereen when he had lain awake listening to the distant clatter of chains as they were removed from wrists, to the sobbing laughter of men and women who had thought they would die in bondage. of the way Grey Worm had stood before him, spine straight, when asked if he would fight for a queen who had no whip. "I am the man who walked out of that fire," he said at last. "And I am the man who sat on that throne today and did not order Hasdur's head taken off when he shouted at me. That will have to be enough for now." She looked at him for a long heartbeat, then nodded slowly. "It is a start," she said. "A start." The word felt both too small and too vast. "Come," she said, and this time when she stepped forward, he walked beside her. They reached a small chamber overlooked by high windows that caught what little breeze there was. A table had been laid with bread, olives, roasted lamb, and a bowl of figs. A jug of watered wine stood near the edge, condensation beating on the clay. Viserys fell upon the food with more eagerness than he meant to show. His stomach growled as he tore a piece of bread and soaked it in the lamb's juices. "Breathe between bites," Daenerys said dryly. "You sound like Mother," he replied, swallowing. The words came before he could stop them. Daenerys' hands stilled on the jug. "I barely remember her," she said. "Only her voice, and the way she smelled. Lemons, always lemons. She used to hide the good bread under the bed," Viserys said. "When Father forgot to eat, when he would stand in the throne room muttering for hours, she would take my hand and pull me into her chamber, and we would sit cross-legged on the floor and eat in secret so the servants wouldn't see. She would say that kings were allowed to be greedy with their bread if nothing else." Daenerys smiled faintly. "You never told me that." "I never told you many things," he said. "I hoarded all the memories as if they were coin, as if you would steal them from me." "I would have shared them," she said quietly. "Yes," he said. "I know that now." They ate in silence for a time. The wine washed the dust from his throat. The sharp sweetness of the figs cut through the heaviness of lamb and bread. When the tray had been half emptied and the worst of his hunger dulled, Missandei slipped into the room, bowed, and held out a folded scrap of parchment. "A raven, your grace," she said, "from the East Tower. It came with the morning tide." Viserys took the note, eyebrows lifting. "From whom?" "The seal was broken, your grace," Missandei said, looking faintly apologetic. "The bird flew hard. The wax did not hold in the heat. Maester Gallery confirmed its authenticity before bringing it to me. That caught his attention. Maesters, ravens, Westeros." He unfolded the parchment. The script was neat and careful, the ink a sharp, dark brown. To his grace Viserys of House Targaryen, it read, "The third of his name, King of Meereen and Protector of the Bay." The titles startled him more than they should have. It had been a long time since anyone had written them down so formally. "My king," the letter continued, "word of your dragons and your victories has reached more ears than you might wish. There are those in the 7 kingdoms who grow restless beneath the weight of lions and stags. There are cracks in the stone. Through such cracks, fire may seep. If you would be more than Dragonlord of a single city, you must begin to think of thrones beyond these sands." He did not need the signature to know who had written it. He could hear the man's dry, precise voice in every line. "Varys," he said aloud. Daenerys' head snapped up. "The spider." Viserys handed her the note. She read quickly, eyes flicking back and forth. At the bottom, in small, elegant letters, was the familiar flourish, "Your humblest servant, Varys." "How did he know where to find you?" she asked. "He always knows," Viserys said. "Even when I was sleeping in pigsties and begging for crusts, he knew. He sent gold sometimes, through Illyrio, or through others too fat to be anyone else's friends. I thought he did it because he was guilty, because he had served the men who killed Father and stole our home. Perhaps he did, or perhaps he was simply keeping his options open." "What does he say?" Yora asked from the doorway, where he had appeared silently at Missandei's heels. "He says there are cracks," Viserys said. "He says the realm is restless. He says if I mean to be more than king of Meereen, I should begin to think of Westeros." "You already do," Daenerys said. "Yes," he said, "but thinking is one thing, acting is another." The city is not yet secure, Yora said. You know this, your grace. The sons of the Harpy still strike in the shadows. The Yunkish watch from beyond the horizon. The Astapori are weak and afraid. If you take your dragons and your army across the sea too soon, you may find no city left to return to. You assume I mean to return, Viserys said. Yora frowned. You would leave Meereen to who, then? A steward? One of these noble boys with murder in their eyes? A sellsword who will bolt the first time a better contract is offered. This city is yours, for good or ill. You cannot simply use it up like a campfire and walk away. Daenerys set the note down carefully. There is another choice, she said. You could stay. He stared at her. Stay, she repeated. Here, rule this city. Make it something more than a stepping stone. Let Westeros look east and see not a conqueror on the horizon, but a king who made a new world where the old one was rotten. Yora's gaze flicked between them, wary. That is not what he was born for, the knight said quietly. He is the blood of the dragon. Westeros is his by right. And what are these people, then? Daenerys demanded, anger sparking. A rehearsal? A trial run? How many lives must he break to prove he can hold a throne that has never done anything but devour those who sit on it? Viserys felt the words like blows. You think I do not love that city, he said. That I do not dream of the smell of the sea there, of the sound of the bells, of the way the light falls on the red walls at sunset? You think I do not remember the sound of the Blackwater under the bridge, the way the wind whistled through the stones of the tower where father kept his hands. His voice had risen without him meaning it to. He forced it back down. I remember, he said, every stone, every shadow. There is a ghost of me in every corridor. I am the king of those ghosts. Am I to turn my back on them because Meereen bleeds? Too, Daenerys' eyes shone. You are king of the living if you choose to be. In Westeros as well as here, Yora said. If you can take it. And if I cannot? Viserys asked. If I fail? If I take the dragons and the Unsullied and every fighting man in the city and sail west and find there only death and treachery and another usurper's sword across my throat? What then of Meereen? What then of the freedmen who trusted me? Of the children who sleep in these streets believing the Harpy will not come for them in the night because the dragon watches? Silence. Missandei, who had been quiet until now, spoke in a voice very soft but very clear. There is a saying in Noth, your grace, she said. The butterfly that tries to drink from two flowers at once breaks its own neck. Viserys snorted. And what would you have me do, child of Noth? Choose one flower and starve while the other withers. She did not look away. I would have you drink deeply from one, your grace, she said. And then, when you are strong, see if the other is still there to be claimed. He stared at her, this slight girl who had once been a slave and now corrected kings. You all advise caution, he said. Caution, patience, prudence. Wait and wait and wait, until the right moment falls into my lap like a ripe fruit. Do you know how many right moments slipped past while we waited in merchant houses for ships that never came? While we ate stale bread and counted what little coin we had. While the man who stole our home grew old and died in his bed and passed it to his son, who now sits it as if it were his by birth. Daenerys' jaw clenched. You are not that boy anymore, she said. No, he said, voice low, but he lives inside me. He claws at my ribs when I sleep. He whispers that if I do not move, if I do not seize and take, everything will be taken from me again. You ask me to chain him. I tell you he is the one who kept us alive. For a heartbeat no one spoke. Then Daenerys stepped closer, until she stood so near he could see the faint fleck of gold at the edge of her iris, the way her pupils narrowed in the bright light. Then let him rest, she said. Let him lay down the crown he made of hunger and fear. Let him see that you do not need to burn the world to keep from freezing. I do not know how, he said. The admission dragged from him like a splinter. Learn, she said. The word hung between them. Viserys looked away. His gaze fell on the parchment again, on the precise lines of Varys' script. Cracks in the stone, fire seeping through. He imagined Westeros as he had last seen it. From the deck of a ship, King's Landing shrinking on the horizon, smoke rising from its chimneys, the red keep a jagged silhouette against the evening sky. He imagined it now, with a boy on its throne whose name he had never spoken without spitting, with wolves and lions and stags at one another's throats in the fields and forests beyond. The boy inside him howled for it. The man who had sat a day in judgment over Meereen listened to the sound and did not yet move. "Send word to Varys," he said at last. "Tell him this, that the dragon has not forgotten the land where it was hatched. That I will not sit content upon a pyramid while usurpers sit where my father sat. But tell him also that I am not some sellsword captain he can nudge into battle at his whim. When I come, it will be on my own terms, with my own strength, not as his piece on a Sivas board." Missandei nodded, already thinking of the words. "Yes, your grace. And the captains?" Yora asked. "The Ironborn, the Valerion, the others who sniff at the harbor like dogs at a butcher's door." "Invite Orain Valerion to supper," Viserys said. "Somewhere with wine enough to loosen his tongue, but not so much he forgets what he says. As for the Ironborn," he smiled without humor, "let them wait. If they truly wish to share in Dragonfire, they'll not sail away because I do not throw them scraps at once." Yora inclined his head. "As you command." Daenerys was still watching him. "And Meereen?" she asked. "What do you command for it?" He thought of the boy Hasdor, white-faced and angry, calculating sums he had never before had to consider. He thought of the woman clutching her children, of the freedmen in their rough shirts, of the harpy masks in the dark. "Meereen will have what I can give it," he said. "Justice where I can find it, fear where I must, dragons in its sky so long as I stay." "And when you leave?" she pressed. His smile was thin. "We have not decided that yet, you and I. Let us not borrow that storm until it breaks." She exhaled slowly, as if letting go of something she could not hold back. "Very well," she said. "But storms do not wait for kings, Viserys. Remember that." She turned and left, Missandei falling in beside her like a shadow. Yora lingered a moment longer. "She speaks hard truths," he said. "She speaks as if she were the only one who knows fear," Viserys replied. "She knows yours," Yora said, "better than you think." When they were gone, Viserys stood alone in the chamber, the half-empty dishes on the table, the parchment on the table between them like a line drawn on a map. Above, faint and distant, a dragon roared. He went to the narrow stair that led upward. The air grew hotter as he climbed, the stone radiating stored heat. The sounds of the pyramid fell away behind him. By the time he reached the open terrace at the top, his tunic clung to his back. The dragons lay sprawled in the sun, great coils of muscle and scale. Aemon dozed, his massive head resting on the curve of his forearm, smoke whispering from between his teeth. Aelryan and Rhaenys were curled against his flank, their tails intertwined, their wings half spread to catch the light. When Viserys stepped onto the terrace, 3 sets of eyes opened at once. 3 heads lifted, 3 necks uncoiled. He crossed the wide expanse of sun-warmed stone slowly, boots scuffing. His pulse thudded in his throat, the old awe rising in him like tide. He had stood before kings and begged. He had stood before slavers and trembled. He had stood in fire and felt it curl around him like water. Nothing had ever made him feel so small and so large as these 3 sets of eyes fixed on him. Aemon lowered his head until his snout was level with Viserys' chest. The breath that gusted from his nostrils smelled of meat and smoke and old blood. The scar along his muzzle caught the light, a pale line in the dark scales. Viserys reached out and laid his hand on that scar. The dragon rumbled, a sound like distant thunder. "You heard," Viserys said, and for a moment, he could almost believe that the beast understood words as men did. "They all heard. They think they know what I must be, what I must do. 1 city, 1 kingdom, 1 war at a time. Emeon's eye, golden as a coin held to the sun, blinked slowly. "When I was a boy," Viserys said, "I thought a crown was a simple thing, a piece of metal you set upon your head and then the world bent to your will. I thought dragons would solve everything. A city would open its gates. A usurper would shiver in his bed. Men would bow, and that would be the end of it." He laughed softly, the sound bitter. "It seems the world is more complicated than that." Behind Emeon, Aelryan snorted, smoke curling in a lazy spiral. Rhaenys stretched, her wings casting a brief shadow over them both. "I can feel it," Viserys said, closing his eyes for a heartbeat. "Westeros, like a storm beyond the horizon. The boy in me wants to run toward it with bare feet and open arms. The man knows that storms drown as many as they cleanse." He opened his eyes, staring into the dragons. "If I come, I must come as more than hunger wrapped in scales. I must come as a king." Emeon's head dipped, slow, as if in acknowledgement, or perhaps only to scratch an itch along the stone. Viserys set his hand flat against the dragon's snout, feeling the rough heat of scale and the steady pulse beneath. He could almost imagine that he felt, faintly, the echo of something vast moving in the depths. A force older than the city, older than Westeros, older than any throne. "I will not crawl to them," he said, voice low. "I will not be their peace, or their monster, or their cautionary tale. When I cross that sea, it will be because I choose to, and I will carry more than fire with me." He thought of Daenerys, her eyes bright with anger and concern, of Missandei's quiet wisdom, of Yora's weary loyalty, of Grey Worm's steady gaze, of the nameless freedwoman and her children. A king was not only his dragons. He was the sum of every life that bent beneath his decisions. "I will rule this city," he said, the words tasting strangely new in his mouth, "not as they did with whips and chains, nor as a stranger merely passing through. I will make it hold together, stone upon stone, until it can stand without me. And then we will see." The wind shifted, hot and dry, carrying with it the faint distant sounds of Meereen, the cries of vendors, the bark of dogs, the clatter of carts. The city sprawled below, indifferent and watchful. Viserys stood on the terrace of the Great Pyramid, his hand on the snout of a dragon, the weight of a city at his back and the shadow of a kingdom across the sea before him, and knew that the boy he had been would have leapt without looking. The man he was becoming stood and thought, and for the first time in his life, allowed himself to imagine a path that was more than a single furious charge toward a throne. It began here, on hot stone bathed in dragon's breath, with the taste of dust on his tongue and the memory of a girl's voice saying, "Learn." "Very well," Viserys Targaryen said to the dragon, to the city, to the ghosts of a red keep half a world away. "Let us begin." The body lay half in shadow, half in the thin wash of dawn spilling into the alley, and the flies had found it before the sun did. Grey Worm stood over the dead man with his spear grounded and his face as still as if carved from stone. The alley was narrow, hemmed in by leaning walls that exhaled the stink of old piss and cooking smoke. Overhead, a crooked line of laundry sagged between windows. A child's tunic, a stained undershirt, a faded strip of blue silk that might once have been part of a noblewoman's hem. The dead man's blood had run into the cracks between the worn cobbles and pooled there, dark and sticky. It was not yet dry. His hands were clenched as if he had died clinging to something he no longer held. His mouth gaped, teeth pink. On the wall above him, someone had painted a harpy. The wings were crooked. The talons were too long. The paint had been slapped on in haste, dripping down like tears. But the meaning was clear enough. Behind Grey Worm, 6 Unsullied stood in a tight knot, their spears angled outward to keep back the small crowd that had gathered at the mouth of the alley. They were mostly freedmen, their rough clothes stained from work in the brickyards and markets, eyes wide and wary. A few Meereenese in better cloth hovered at the back, collars gleaming, their expressions carefully blank. "Who find him?" Grey Worm asked. A little girl of perhaps 10 summers stepped forward, her bare feet black with dust, hair plaited in messy rows. She kept her gaze fixed on his chest, not quite daring to look up into his face. "I did, Captain," she said in halting common. "I was bringing water for my mother. I saw the blood." She pointed with the hand that did not clutch her cracked clay jug. Grey Worm followed the line of her finger. The blood trail was short. Whoever had killed him had done it cleanly and quickly. There were no scuff marks on the stones, no overturned baskets. The man had come into this alley for a reason, and he had died before he could leave. "You touch him?" Grey Worm asked. The girl shook her head at once, curls bouncing. "No, Captain. My mother says not to touch dead men. She says their ghosts cling." Smart mother. Grey Worm took a step closer to the body. The man had been middle-aged, with a thin beard and a receding hairline. His tunic was plain but clean. No collar, no slave's brand that he could see. When he crouched and rolled the man's shoulder with 2 fingers, he saw the knife wound, a short, efficient thrust under the ribs. There was a second cut on the man's forearm, shallow. An attempt to ward off the blow, perhaps. It was not the work of panicked brutes. This was practiced. Under the body, the cobbles glinted. Something small and round, half pressed into the damp grime. Grey Worm used the butt of his spear to nudge the thing free. It rolled, clicked against the stone, and stopped. A coin. Not Meereenese. He bent, picked it up between thumb and forefinger, and turned it over. On one side, a head in profile. A king whose face Grey Worm did not recognize, though he had learned the coins of many cities. On the other, a tower or castle surrounded by waves. The metal was pale yellow, heavy for its size. Coin from across the sea. Westeros, perhaps. He had seen similar in the pouches of sailors at the harbor. He slipped it into a fold of his belt. "Name," he said, looking at the body again. "Who is he?" There was a shuffling in the crowd. Then a woman pushed her way forward, her hands twisting in her apron. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Please," she said, "my husband. His name is Kezer. He went out when it was still dark, to carry bricks. They pay more if you start before the sun." Her voice cracked. She covered her mouth as if to stuff the sound back in. Grey Worm straightened. "He was slave?" he asked. She shook her head, then stopped, uncertain. He was, before the Queen freed us. But after he worked the same. The master paid him coin. Not as much as he paid the others, but it was enough. For bread. For... Her eyes flicked to the girl with the jug. For them. Her lips trembled. "We did nothing wrong," she whispered. "We did nothing. Why would they?" Grey Worm had no answer for that. Crime had existed before the Queen came. Men had stolen from one another, had killed in drunk brawls or for jealousy or for small, shabby reasons not worth the blood. But those killings had not been marked by harpies. Now, every corpse left like this, cut quick and clean, left under the painted symbol, was a message. Not a quarrel, not a mischance. A warning. He looked at the harpy again. The paint was fresh. The hand that had drawn it had been hurried but certain. The lines, though crooked, had been laid with confidence. Whoever had done this was no stranger in this alley. They had known the corners, the places where shadows clung longest. "Everyone go home," Grey Worm said abruptly, straightening. "This place is finished." The crowd stirred uneasily. Someone muttered something about blessings. Another man spat on the cobbles and hurried away. The little girl lingered, gaze fixed stubbornly on her father's still form. "What will you do?" she demanded, in a voice that did not crack as her mother's had. "You are the Unsullied. You are the dragon's men. Will you kill them?" Her eyes were like dark stones in her thin face. Grey Worm imagined, briefly, the alley filled with bodies instead of one. Men in harpy masks, throats cut, blood soaking the cobbles until no crack was dry. "Yes," he said, "we will." "Good," she said, and there was something far too old in her tone. "If you don't, I will." He watched her go, the cracked jug swinging in her hand, and wondered how many such pledges had been made in the past year in this city. How many silent wars were being waged under his feet while he marched the streets. When the alley was empty save for his men and the corpse, he nodded. "Wrap him," he said. "Bring him to the temple. Then send word to the Great Pyramid. The king must know." They brought the news to Viserys while the sweat of the morning's practice was still drying on his skin. He stood bare-chested in the training yard behind the pyramid, a blunted practice sword in one hand and his breath coming fast. The yard was a square of packed earth ringed by low walls, its shade broken by the shadows of pillars. Heat rose off the ground in shimmers. Two of the Unsullied lay in the dirt nearby, chests heaving, their spears scattered. "You are still pulling your blows," Barristan Selmy said, his own practice blade held lightly, almost lazily, in his hand. The old knight's white hair was plastered to his brow, but his breathing was only slightly faster than usual. "Every time you go for the leg, you hesitate. Someone with quicker reflexes than these men would take advantage." Viserys wiped his forearm across his face, smearing sweat without doing much to remove it. "Every time I go for the leg," he said, "I remember there are two of them and one of me. And yet you asked to fight two at once," Barristan replied. "I did not expect them to be so eager to trample a king," Viserys said, glancing at the Unsullied with a flicker of amusement. "I thought discipline forbade it." "Discipline commands it, your grace," one of the men said, still flat on his back. You told us not to hold back." There was a hint of wry pride in his voice, if one listened carefully. Viserys tossed his practice sword aside, flexing his fingers. His arms ached, his shoulders burned, but there was a satisfaction in that pain. Once he had considered any hurt an affront. Now he had begun to see the use of a body that knew the weight of steel. "If I am to be a king who leads men into battle," he said, "I must at least know which end of the sword to hold." "The end that goes into the enemy," Barristan said dryly. "You're learning, but do not imagine a few mornings in the yard will make you a seasoned warrior. Pride gets more men killed than any spear. Pride has kept more men alive than you'd think," Viserys said, and would have said more, but Grey Worm strode into the yard then, helm under his arm, his expression graver than usual. Viserys' light mood slipped away at once. "What is it?" he asked. "A man dead, your grace," Grey Worm said. "Freedman, killed in the shadow of the wall near the East Market. Marked with the harpy." Viserys' jaw tightened. "Another? 3 this week," Grey Worm said. "2 days ago, a boy in the potter's quarter. Last night, a man who sold herbs by the river. Now this one. And you don't know who is doing it." It was not accusation, but the edge in his voice made Grey Worm straighten nonetheless. "The sons of the harpy hide behind neighbors, your grace," Grey Worm said. "They strike in the dark and melt into the city. Those we catch are low men, frightened. They say nothing, or they say only names already dead." Viserys picked up a cloth from the edge of the yard and dragged it across his face and chest. The sweat cooled quickly in the slight breeze. "Show me," he said. Barristan's eyebrows rose. "Your grace, the alley, is part of my city," Viserys said. "If people are dying in it in my name, I will see it for myself." Barristan hesitated, then inclined his head. "As you wish." They walked through the pyramid first, so that Viserys could pull a linen shirt over his head and a light vest of hardened leather over that. Ser Jorah met them in the great hall, already armed, and fell into step without needing to be called. The streets outside the Great Pyramid seemed, at first glance, as they always were at mid-morning, noisy and full. Vendors shouted their wares, from spiced lamb skewers to bright strips of cloth. The smell of frying onions battled with that of the tanneries and the canals. Children darted between adults. Somewhere a man plucked at a 3-stringed lute, the notes thin and insistent. But as they moved toward the East Market, a subtle unease threaded the air. Conversations quieted when Grey Worm's armor clinked into view. People edged aside quickly, eyes dropping. They knew, Viserys realized. News traveled faster than any raven in a city like this. The streets themselves hummed with it. By the time they reached the alley, the body was gone. Only the dark stain remained on the stones where the blood had pooled, and the painted harpy above, raw and wet-looking. Viserys stood beneath it, neck craned back, and studied the crude lines. "They are getting sloppy," he said. Yora frowned. "It looks much like the others to me." "The others were more careful," Viserys said. "Neater. They took more time. This feels hurried. Someone afraid of being seen." "It is possible the painter was different," Grey Worm said. "Perhaps a new recruit. Perhaps their hands shake now when they raise their brush," Viserys said. "That would be something." He turned away from the wall, lowering his gaze to the ground. The blood had seeped into the cracks. Flies buzzed. "Where is he?" Viserys asked. "The man who died. At the temple, your grace," Grey Worm said. "His wife takes him to the Silent Sisters. From Westeros, that the habits of the Seven had crept into the city like vines through broken stone." "Good," Viserys said. "He should be buried where people can see his grave." He crouched, fingertips hovering over the blood. The smell was sharp, metallic, already souring in the heat. "3 this week," he said. "How many last week?" "2, Grey Worm said. "And for the week before." They were escalating then, or growing bolder, or both. Viserys straightened slowly. "This coin you found," he said. "Where is it?" Grey Worm drew the foreign coin from his belt and placed it in Viserys' palm. "It was under his body," the captain said. "He did not carry a purse." Viserys turned the coin over, thumb tracing the unfamiliar king's profile. The metal was heavier than Meereen's currency, the engraving deeper. "A message?" Yora asked. "Perhaps," Viserys said. "Or perhaps simply a clumsy attempt to confuse us. But if the harpy is taking payment from those across the sea now, I should like to know who sends it." He looked around. The alley was empty of people now, but he could feel eyes on him. From the windows above, from the narrow slits in the walls, from the dark mouth of the intersecting lane. He turned in a slow circle, letting his gaze sweep over the bricks, the cracks, the shadows. "My name is Viserys Targaryen," he said, voice carrying easily in the confined space. "The man you killed this morning was my subject." Yora shifted. Barristan's expression did not change, but a muscle in his jaw jumped. Grey Worm stood like a spear driven into earth. "You hide behind masks and paint," Viserys went on. "You stab men in the dark and call it war. You tell yourselves you fight for your homes, for your way of life, for the gods you worship in corners. You tell yourselves the dragon is a thief and a tyrant and a foreigner. Perhaps you even believe it." He turned again, slower this time, studying each shadow. "I will tell you what I am," he said. "I am the man who ended the buying and selling of your neighbors. I am the man who broke your whips. I am the man who listens to the grievances of freedmen and nobles alike until my throat is raw and my head aches. I am the man who did not flay your fathers and hang their skins from the walls when I took this city, as they would have done to mine if the chance had been reversed." His gestures were calm, his tone almost conversational, but his words fell sharp as coins. "If you think that makes me weak," he said, "you misunderstand me. Mercy is not the absence of strength. It is a choice, one I have made again and again. But hear me now. I will not be merciful forever." The alley held its breath. "You paint your harpies," Viserys said, "so I will paint my dragons. Every time you kill, I will mark the place with my own sign. Every man who walks these streets will know where you have spilled blood, and where I have sworn it will not be forgotten. And I will hunt you, not like a lord sending men to beat the bushes, but like a dragon hunts, from above and below, in the sky and in the sewers, until you have nowhere left to run but into my mouth." He paused, letting the echo of his words die away. "Watch closely," he murmured then, more to himself than to the unseen ears. Learn the difference between fear of a harpy in the dark and fear of a dragon in the open. He stepped back. "Bring me paint," he said. It took only minutes for an Unsullied to return with a small pot of thick black pigment and a narrow brush meant for scrawling notices on shutters. Viserys took them, the wood and clay awkward in his sword-calloused fingers. He turned back to the wall. Below the crudely drawn harpy, in broad strokes that cut across its talons, he painted a dragon. It was not elegant. He had never been much of an artist, and his hand was not as steady as he might have liked. The head came out too large, the wings uneven, but it had 3 heads and a long, coiling body, and fire in its open jaws. When he stepped back, the harpy looked somehow diminished behind it, like an old god devoured by a newer, hungrier one. He handed the brush back to the Unsullied, fingers stained black. "Any man who sees this," he said to Grey Worm, "will ask what it means. Tell them the truth, that I have seen their dead, and that I will not pretend their ghosts are none of my concern." "Yes, your grace," Grey Worm said. "Then send men to every place marked with a harpy," Viserys added. "All of them, past and present. Have the dragons painted there, too. Let the city see the trail these cowards leave behind them, and let them see that trail end at my door." Grey Worm bowed his head. "It will be done." Viserys let out a slow breath he had not known he was holding. The heat pressed in on him. Somewhere very high above, he heard the faint, distant scream of a dragon. "We should get you back to the pyramid," Barristan said quietly. "You have a council to convene." "Yes," Viserys said. "I know." He turned from the alley, from the imperfect dragon rearing over the harpy, and walked back toward the heart of the city he had sworn, herself or not, to make his own. The council met in a room that had once housed the private baths of a Meereenese noble. The mosaics remained on the walls. Scenes of harpies and slaves, of ships with prows shaped like beasts, of fields of grain tended by faceless figures. The baths themselves had been drained and covered with planks. A long table of dark wood sat where the main pool had once been, surrounded by chairs taken from a dozen different chambers, some high-backed and carved, others plain. Viserys sat at the head of the table, a carafe of watered wine at his elbow, his black-stained fingers hidden in the folds of his sleeves. To his right, Daenerys sat with Missandei beside her. To his left, Jorah and Barristan. Grey Worm took a place a little farther down, back straight, hands folded. Beyond him sat 2 Meereenese. Resnak Emo Resnak, a courtier with a smooth, sweating face, and Skahaz Emo Kandak, whose beard had been roughly hacked off in defiance of old ways. At the far end, Orain Valerion lounged with studied ease, one arm draped over the back of his chair, eyes flicking around the room. It was not a proper council yet. There were gaps. No master of coin, no spymaster beyond what rumors Missandei could glean, no maester sworn only to them. But it was a beginning, and beginnings had power. "We have 3 matters," Viserys began. "The city's security, the city's purse, and our position beyond these walls. We will speak of each in turn. We'll begin with the one that leaves blood on the stones." He looked at Grey Worm. The Unsullied nodded once. "Your Grace, the sons of the Harpy grow bolder. They strike against freedmen and against those they name traitors. Yesterday, 2 former overseers were killed, their tongues cut out. Today's man was freedman, a man who kept his head down and worked. They wish to show that no one is safe. They wish to show you cannot protect them," Skahaz said, teeth bared. His hair, hacked short in rebellion, bristled like a mane. "That your Unsullied are no better than the old City Watch." "They are better," Daenerys said sharply. "Even so," Skahaz said, "they are not enough." "How many Unsullied remain fit for duty?" Viserys asked. 8,000, Grey Worm said. "We lost 300 in the taking of the city and in the early attacks. Others are assigned to guard the walls, the harbor, the pyramid." "And how many guards did the old masters employ to keep order?" Viserys asked Skahaz. "Less," Skahaz said. "But we did not have to guard against men with masks. We were the masks." He said it without pride, as if speaking of a necessary ugliness. There was something almost admirable in that honesty. Fear is a blade that cuts both ways, Viserys said. They used it to keep slaves from raising their heads. Now they use it to keep them from trusting their new king. He turned to Grey Worm again. You know your men. What do you need? Eyes, your grace, Grey Worm said. Unsullied see what stands in front of them. They march, they guard, but they do not gossip with neighbors. They do not drink in wine sinks. They do not crawl into walls. We need men who can do these things. Sells words, Yora suggested. They can be paid to listen. They can be paid more to lie, Barristan said. Missandei cleared her throat softly. There are freedmen, she said. Men and women who know the back alleys, the markets, the brothels. Some would be loyal, if given reason. Skahaz snorted. You would give knives to men who have only just set theirs down? Viserys drummed his fingertips lightly on the table, leaving faint smears of black on the polished wood. We have, he said, 3 groups. The unsullied, disciplined, fearless, conspicuous. The freedmen, numerous, varied, frightened, angry. And the nobles, few, rich, resentful, and connected. The sons of the Harpy move among the last and strike at the first 2. So we answer with something that crosses their lines. He glanced at Grey Worm. Choose me 50 men from among the freedmen, he said. Men and women, those with sharp eyes and sharper wits. They will not be soldiers. They will be something else. Spies, Yora said. Eyes, Viserys corrected. And knives, if need be. They will move where the unsullied cannot. In taverns, in markets, in the bedchambers of noble houses. You would make a new kind of slave, Resnack interjected, his voice oily. Slaves of secrets. It is dangerous, Great One. Dangerous to teach such people the ways of power. Viserys fixed him with a flat look. They already know the ways of power, he said. They have lived under it all their lives. Will not pretend ignorance keeps them harmless. I would rather have their knowledge turned toward my enemies than left to fester. You cannot trust them, Skahaz said. Not all of them. Some will take your coin and add it to the Harpies. No, Viserys said. I cannot. That is why they will not answer only to me. He turned to Daenerys. You will choose another 50, he said. From those you trust. From those who have stood before you and asked for justice and received it. Her brows rose. And what will you do with them? I will set them to watch the first 50, he said. And the first 50 will watch them. If any man or woman is seen taking coin, passing messages, meeting with masked men, I will know. And then Grey Worm spears will do what they are best at. Daenerys' lips parted, then curved faintly. You mean to spy on your own spies? Yes, Viserys said. I learned something from years in exile. The only men you can trust wholly are those whose secrets you hold. That is a dark lesson, Barristan murmured. That is a true one, Viserys replied. And I am tired of learning only the pleasant truths. Grey Worm considered. It will take time to choose them, he said. Take it, Viserys said, but not too much. For now, double patrols in the poorest quarters at night, and move some of your men out of the bright streets and into the shadows. The Harpy thinks you will not follow them into the sewers. Prove them wrong. Grey Worm nodded. Yes, your grace. Now, Viserys said, turning to Resnack with a certain grim satisfaction. Let us speak of coin. Resnack dabbed at his forehead with a scented cloth. The city's treasury is strained, Great One, he said. The nobles have paid their fines reluctantly. Trade is unsettled. The harbors are busy, yes, but many ships only come to look, to see if it is safe to bring full cargoes. And the cost of feeding your unsullied, of repairing the walls, of rebuilding the markets. Spare me the whining, Viserys said. Tell me what remains. Resnack swallowed. Gold and silver enough to pay your army for 3 moons, he said. Perhaps for if we cut food rations. less if we must pay for more grain from Astapor. The harvest outside the walls was poor this year. Many fields were burned in the fighting. And taxes? Viserys asked. Reznak grimaced. The people do not like them, Great One. Nor did they like chains, Viserys said. Yet they bore them for generations. I will not hear about their likes again. I will hear numbers. Reznak licked his lips. We collect a tariff on goods entering the city, he said. A levy on ships in the harbor. A tithe on trade in the markets. We have attempted to tax the wealth of former masters, but coin has a way of disappearing. They claim to have less than they once boasted. Of course they do, Orain said lazily from the far end. A man will swear by all his gods that his coffers are empty when a king's fingers are near. Show him a merchant's ledger, and he weeps because the numbers do not flatter him. Reznak shot him a poisonous look. Then we will stop asking what they have, Viserys said, and start telling them what they owe. Daenerys' eyes narrowed. You risk driving them into open rebellion, she said. Enough pressure, and the sons of the Harpy will find more willing hands. The nobles have had centuries to build their hordes, Viserys said. The freedmen have had 1 year to build anything at all. If I am to choose who starves, I have already made my decision. He thought of Hasdor's white face as he had named the Samode, of the woman's trembling hands, of the boy's dark, defiant eyes. We will impose a tax on property, he went on every house of a certain size, on every field beyond a certain measure, on every ship in the harbor that flies a Meereenese banner. Those who cannot pay in coin will pay in goods, in grain, in stone, in labor for the rebuilding of the walls. Those who cannot pay at all will see their lands forfeit and redistributed. Reznak made a small choking sound. Great One, if you do that, the old families will. Will what? Viserys asked softly. Hang harpies on the walls? They are doing that already. I have no interest in pretending this peace is anything more than a breath held between battles. If I must choose when the shouting begins again, I will choose it when my coffers are not empty and my dragons are not half-grown. Daenerys was watching him with that same assessing gaze she had turned on him on the balcony that morning. We can lessen the burden on the poorest, Missandei ventured. Set the threshold high enough that small homes and shops are exempt. Let it fall heaviest on those with the most to spare. Viserys nodded. Yes, do that. Draw up the numbers. We will publish the edict openly, with my name upon it. Let no man say later that he did not know what was owed, or why. Reznak swallowed and nodded, though his expression suggested he would rather eat his own cloth than deliver this news to the noble houses. Now, Viserys said, finally turning fully toward Orain Valerion. Our position beyond these walls. Orain straightened slightly in his chair, interest sharpening his eyes. This city is a stone in a creek, Viserys said. The water flows around it, but it does not stop. Caravans still cross the Red Waste. Ships still pass along the coast. The slavers will not love us for what we have done. They will not accept your new laws as the will of the gods. He glanced at Skahaz. They will call us a sickness, a contagion. They already do, Skahaz said grimly. Yunkai speaks of you as if you were a plague. Astapor is a ruin, its people starving. The wise masters tell themselves it is because there was no dragon there to rule. I do not think they truly believe it. They whisper to one another that Meereen will be next to fall into dust when you fly away. I do not intend to fly away, Viserys said. Not yet. Orain's lips curved. Yet, he repeated softly. There is trade to be had, Viserys said, and enemies to mind. Yunkai, Volantis, perhaps even Karth, if they decide they do not like dragons on their doorstep. I will not isolate myself in this pyramid like a spider at the center of a web he has not woven. You will need ships, Orain said. Many if you mean to project strength beyond this bay. The Ironborn captain would gladly lend you his, for a price. There are others, too. The Triarchs of Volantis would sell their own mothers if they thought the profit worth the risk. But the more you lean on them, the more you tie yourself to their wars. I know, Viserys said. I am not asking you where to buy ships. I am asking you where to build them. Moiraine's eyebrows rose. You mean to become a shipwright? I mean to become less dependent on men whose loyalties blow with the wind, Viserys said. This city has slaves who once built galleys for their masters. They know how to cut timber and lay keels. If we free them truly, give them pay and purpose, they can build for me instead. You will need wood, Moiraine said. Good hardwood, not the dried sticks that pass for trees near here. Then we will bring it, Viserys said. From the forests upriver, from lands loyal to us, we will plant groves closer to the city. This will take years, I know, but I have no intention of ruling for only a season. Moiraine was watching him with a new sort of attention. When I first heard of you, the bastard of Driftmark said slowly, they called you the Beggar King, a mad boy with more pride than sense, who would sell his sister for an army and then squander it in a week. I thought if I ever met you, I would find only that boy, wrapped in dragonfire. I confess I am pleasantly surprised. Viserys' mouth twisted. I was that boy, he said. I may yet be that man again, if the day requires it. But I have learned that a king who thinks only of the next battle has no kingdom to come back to. He leaned forward, fixing Moiraine with his gaze. You asked me for place, he said. Take it. You are, from this moment, my master of ships. Such ships as I have, and such as we build, will answer to you. Moiraine blinked, then laughed, a low, delighted sound. I should warn you, your grace, he said. I have betrayed my liege once already. It would be unwise to trust me completely. Viserys smiled thinly. That depends, he said, on whether you betrayed him for yourself or for something larger. Moiraine's smile dimmed, then steadied. Perhaps, he said. We will speak of that another night. We will, Viserys said. For now, draw me a map of the coast of Westeros as a shipman sees it, not as maesters draw it in their books. Mark for me the harbors, the hidden coves, the shoals. Mark the places where a fleet might land unseen, and the places where a single ship with a single man aboard might slip through a blockade. You speak as if you are already on the water, Daenerys said quietly. Not yet, Viserys said, without looking at her. But I must know the shape of the sea before I step into it. He closed his black-stained fingers around the coin in his sleeve, pressed into his palm, solid and cold. Until then, he said, we have a city to make less easy to cut. The day slid downward into heat and shadows. The council dissolved, each member scattering to their tasks. Grey Worm to his patrol routes, Missandei to her numbers, Resnack and Skahaz to spread news they did not relish. Barristan went to the yard to drill the younger men. Moiraine to the harbor to smell the wind and the gossip. Daenerys withdrew to her own rooms without asking if Viserys wished her company. He felt the absence more keenly than he expected. For a time, he walked the corridors of the pyramid alone, his footsteps echoing in the high spaces. Servants flattened themselves against the walls as he passed. A boy carrying a tray of fruit almost dropped it when Aemian's distant roar rolled through the stone. Viserys ended up, inevitably, at Daenerys' door. He stood there longer than he liked, hand hovering near the carved panel, feeling absurdly like a child in some merchant's house, waiting to see if his sister was angry over a slight he could no longer remember. At last, he knocked. Come, came her voice, muffled but clear. Her rooms were cooler than his, the shutters angled to catch the breeze. Thin curtains stirred in the draft. A basin of water sat on a low table, reflecting the light. Daenerys stood near the window, her hair unbound, falling in silver-gold waves down her back. She wore only a simple shift, her feet bare on the tiles. For a heartbeat, he saw not the woman she'd become but the girl she had been, standing in the cramped doorway of some rented room in Pentos, clutching a bundle of rags. Then she turned, and her eyes were the eyes of the woman in the hall that morning. Cool, clear, assessing. Your fingers are black, she said, instead of greeting. He glanced down, a little surprised to see the paint had dried into the creases of his skin. "I've been improving the city's decor," he said. "So I heard," she replied. "There's already talk in the markets. They say you stood in the alley and shouted at the walls as if the harpies could hear you." "Perhaps they did," he said. "Sound carries strangely in those places." She did not smile. "You shouldn't have gone," she said. "Not without more guards. It was reckless." "The Unsullied were there," he said. "Barristan, Yora. If the sons of the Harpy want to try their knives against Dragonfire, they are welcome to test the steel." "And if they had archers on the roof?" she asked. "If they had arrows tipped with poison? You are not invincible, Viserys. Fire does not make you stone." He opened his mouth to reply, then stopped. "I am learning," he said instead. "Not fast enough," she murmured. He bristled. "You spent years walking into fire," he said. "Into Slaw. Cities and councils of war and marriage beds with men who thought they owned you. Do not speak to me of recklessness as if you were born cautious." Her head snapped up, anger flashing. "The difference," she said, "is that when I did foolish things, I did them because no one else would. Because no one else would free those slaves, or stand in that pit, or walk into that pyre. You have men now who will walk with you. You are not alone." "I know that," he said. "Then act like it," she answered. The words stung because they were true. He sank onto a low bench by the wall, suddenly weary. The cool stones seeped through his tunic. "When I stand in that hall," he said slowly, "and they come before me with their hungry eyes and their empty hands, I feel as if I am wearing a cloak 10 sizes too large. It drags at my heels. I keep tripping on it. And then there are moments when I feel like I might grow into it. When Hasdor bowed, when that woman looked at me as if I had done something no one else ever had. And then some boy lies dead in an alley, and I feel as if the cloth is wrapped around my throat." Daenerys leaned her shoulder against the window frame, watching him. "You are not the only one wearing something that doesn't fit," she said. "When they call me Khaleesi, I remember Ricardo teaching me how to sit a horse without falling. When they call me Mysa, I remember being pushed aside at Illyrio's table because there was not enough food. When they call me Queen, I remember you, drunk and furious, calling me—" "I never," he began. "You did," she said. "In Lys, when the wine ran out and the man with the red beard would not give you more without coin. You don't remember, because you were too far gone." He searched his memory and found only fragments. A red beard, a slap, his own voice hoarse and spitting. Shame flooded him, hot and sharp. "Daenerys," he said, "do not apologize for a word and then ignore the thing beneath it," she said. "You were what you were, desperate, afraid, angry. I have hated you for it. I have pitied you for it. I have loved you despite it. None of that changes the fact that you are my brother, and you sit on a throne now and the world watches." She pushed away from the window and came to stand before him, arms folded. "You are changing," she said again. "I see it. In the way you listened to the petitions. In the way you spoke in the alley. In the way you asked Grey Worm what he needed instead of telling him what you had decided. I am glad of that, but don't confuse bravado with strength. Fire does not have to roar to burn." He had never heard her speak quite like this. Not pleading, not accusing, but measuring, weighing him. "Do you resent it?" he asked quietly. "That they bend knee to me and not to you? That the dragons answer my call more readily than yours?" Her jaw tightened, and he knew he had struck a seam of truth. "I carried those eggs," she said, "across the Red Waste, through Karth, onto the ships. I slept with them beside me. I dreamed of them hatching. I thought they were mine." "They are," he said. Her gaze slid to his painted fingers. "Are they?" she asked. "When you speak, they come. When you raise your hand, they fly. When you walk among them, they curl around you as if you were their nest. When I approach, they tolerate me. I am their aunt, perhaps, not their mother." He remembered the way that first hatchling had ignored her bloody hands and coiled instead around his wrist. The way the fire had gone up his arm, a kiss and a claim. Blood is funny, he said. It runs the same through brothers and sisters, and yet the world seems to think it makes different things of us. I do not blame you, she said. Not truly. You saved me in that desert, you know? He blinked. I did. When the fire came up, she said, eyes distant. When the flames were so high I could not see the sky, I thought I would die. Not from the heat, from the weight of it, the enormity. It was as if the world itself were cracking open. And then I saw you through the smoke, standing there with the flames around you, laughing, Viserys, as if you had come home. He remembered something like that, not laughter in his throat so much as a wild exultation, a sense that something inside him had been waiting for this all his life. I thought, she said, if it does not destroy him, it will not destroy me. If my brother can walk through it, then so can I. And so I stepped in. He stared at her. I didn't know, he said. Of course you didn't, she replied. You were too busy burning. They were quiet a moment. I am not asking you to give them to me, she said finally. The dragons, or the throne, or even the love of these people. I know better than that, but I am asking you to remember that you are not the only one who has bled for this city, and for this dream of Westeros. I remember, he said, more than you think. She studied him as if trying to see inside his skull. You will go one day, she said, across the sea, to them, to the castle you dream of, to the iron chair that has killed more of our blood than any sword. And when you go, they will call you dragon and monster and king. They will try to bend you. They will try to break you. They will try to use you. I know, he said. Do you? She asked. Do you know it here? She stepped closer and touched his chest, above his heart. He felt the pressure through his tunic as if her hand were on bare skin. Do you know what you will be when they tell you that you are all the things they feared? She asked. Will you be father? Will you be the beggar king? Will you be something else? He swallowed. I don't know, he said. Not yet. Then find out here, she said. Before there are 100,000 eyes on you instead of 100. Her hand fell away. Outside, a dragon screamed, closer this time. The sound rattled the shutters. Viserys rose. Come with me, he said. She blinked. Where? To the terrace, he said. To see what I am when there is no one watching but them. She hesitated, then nodded once. They climbed the narrow stair in silence, their footsteps echoing differently now that they walked together. The air grew hotter as before, but the heat felt less oppressive with her beside him. The terrace spread before them, bleached stone and thick air. All three dragons were there this time, awake. Meereen stood with his wings half spread, as if about to take flight. Aelryan perched on the edge of the terrace, peering down at the city with keen curiosity. Rhaenys lay in the shade of a pillar, tail twitching lazily. When Viserys stepped onto the stone, three heads turned, three pairs of eyes fixed on him. Daenerys stopped a pace behind his shoulder. Go on, she murmured. Call them. He took a breath, the air hot in his lungs. In old Valyria, the Dragonlords had sung to their beasts in High Valyrian. In the Red Keep, as a boy, he had parroted fragments of those songs without understanding, listening to the way the words rolled off his father's tongue like flame. Now, he let those half-remembered syllables rise to his lips. Draken, he said softly. Draken Aehan. Dragon, to me. The sound hung on the air, thin at first, then thickening with meaning. Meereen lowered his head until his muzzle was level with Viserys' chest. His breath washed over him, hot enough to prick his skin. Smoke curled from the dragon's nostrils, and the scar on Viserys' arm burned in answer. Behind Meereen, Aelryan leapt down from the terrace edge with a thump that made the stone shiver. Rhaenys uncoiled from her lazy sprawl and padded closer, wings rustling. They gathered around him, the three of them forming a half-circle. Viserys could see each flick of their pupils, each flare of nostrils. "They are not pets," Daenerys said softly. "They are not swords. They are not crowns. They are themselves." "I know," he said. "Do you?" she asked again. He reached out, laying his hand on Emeon's snout as he had before. The dragon rumbled. He closed his eyes and let their presence wash over him. The heat, the smell of ash and meat, the faint electric crackle at the edges of his consciousness. It was like standing too close to a storm. "This is what I am," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "At least in part. Man and fire, scar and hunger, and choice." When he opened his eyes again, Daenerys was watching him, expression unreadable. "You could command them to burn this city," she said, "to melt its bricks into glass. You could fly west tomorrow and rain fire on King's Landing until nothing remained but smoke." "Yes," he said, "I could. Why don't you?" she asked. He thought of the girl in the alley, clutching her cracked jug, of Hasdur's calculation, of Missandei's quiet proverb, of Varys' inked words, of Arrayn's sharp smile. "Because I am tired," he said, "of kings who answer every question with fire." Daenerys' lips parted, then curved, just slightly. "That," she said, "is a better answer than because I prefer to wait for a larger audience." "Give me time," he said. "I may yet grow vain enough to want both." She laughed then, truly laughed, the sound bright and startling as a sudden gust of cool air. The dragons cocked their heads, curious. "Learn faster," she said. "Teach me then," he replied. She looked as if she would say something more, but before she could, footsteps sounded behind them. Yora emerged onto the terrace, sweat darkening his collar. He bowed. "Your Grace," he said, "forgive the interruption, but a messenger has arrived at the base of the pyramid. From Yunkai." Viserys' hand tightened on the dragon's snout. "Let them climb," he said, slowly. "I would not have them faint before I hear what they have to say." "Yes, Your Grace," Yora said. He hesitated, glancing at Daenerys, then withdrew. "A messenger from Yunkai," Daenerys murmured. "The plague speaks. Then we will see if it carries gifts or poison," Viserys said. He let his hand fall away from Emeon at last. The dragon's head followed him for a moment, then turned slowly toward the west, toward the unseen sea beyond the sands, as if something there had caught its attention. Viserys followed that line of sight. Beyond Meereen's pale walls, beyond the parched fields and the yellow river, beyond the horizon itself, lay a land of green hills and gray castles and a red keep that haunted his every dream. He stood between them, city and kingdom, present and past, dragons at his back and ghosts before him. The boy in him wanted to run. The man held his ground. "Very well," Viserys Targaryen murmured, as the first shadow of the Yunkish messenger crossed the terrace. "Let us continue."